Hello and welcome to one more episode of Quantum Tutorials. In this episode, we are going to look at how to customize the base news app that we have created to a specific news channel. As we do this, we'll try to customize the base news app that we have created to NDTV news channel. As we do this, we'll learn about how to create extensions for form controllers, presentation controllers, and business controllers. What is the need for these extensions? Well, using these extensions, we'll be able to create a new customization inside the base app without affecting the actual implementation that is present as part of the base app. This allows us to have a upgrade path alive, which means at a later point of time after implementing this customization, if we want to consume a new version of the base app that is released with some additional functionalities or new capabilities, we would be able to easily upgrade this customized app to that new version of the base app that gets released. That is the reason why we need to have extensions for form controllers, presentation controllers, and business controllers. So without further ado, let us look at how to customize the base news app to a particular news channel. In this case, we will try to consume the news feed from NDTV. So we are customizing the base app for the NDTV news. Here is the RSS feed that we have for various categories of news from NDTV. So if we want to fetch the news for the world, so the RSS feed would be as shown here in the address bar. We'll have to send the type of the news as NDTV news -world -news. Similarly, if we want to fetch the news for sports category, let's look at what is the input that we have to send. So the input is NDTV sports -latest. So this is how we are able to find out what are the different inputs that we have to send for various categories of news articles that we want to retrieve. Now let's see how we can use this and configure the Fabric app to talk to this NDTV news feed instead of talking to the DB. Here is the base Fabric app that we have created. In this Fabric app, we have an integration service talking to relational database, and we have object service, digital objects, and an article object inside it with get articles operation defined on this article object, and this get articles operation is talking to the get operation on the relational DB kind of integration service. Now let's configure an integration service which would consume the RSS feed from NDTV. I am selecting the service type as XML. I am providing the base URL. Click on save and add operation. Let us give a name for our operation and let's define the input parameter. I am using the same IDs for the input parameters while defining this XML integration service for NDTV to be same as the relational DB integration service that we have in the base app. Type is the input parameter which I have defined. Let's add this input parameter. Here we have captured the different inputs that we have to send to this NDTV news feed to get the articles of a particular type of news. Let's look at the latest news. I will use this input as NDTV news hyphen latest. As we are able to see here, we are getting the news articles back from this NDTV news feed for the given input parameter. Let's define the response output parameters. So I will look at the base relational DB kind of integration service that we have, and I will define the response output parameters to be same as the integration service that we already have in the base app. I am using the same IDs. So here are the response output parameters that we have defined for this new integration service. And when we click on save and fetch response, we are able to see that we are getting the news articles back from this feed. We will write a simple post processor to eliminate these special characters in the news feed, so that we will get a clean output that we can send it back to the front end application. Under the advanced tab, for the post processor, so this is a simple JavaScript post processor that we have created, where we are reading each record inside the article dataset, and we are processing each record that is present inside the articles dataset. Specifically, we are looking at the description parameter, headline parameter in each record of the articles dataset, and we are replacing the special characters that are there in the values for the description parameter and headline parameter. Let's look at the output after adding this post processor. Let's click on save and fetch response. As we can see here, under the articles dataset, now each of the record is post processed, and in the description and the headline parameters, the values do not have any special characters inside them. So now we are ready with the integration service. Let's modify the object service that we have. Currently, the digital objects object service is having the article object inside it, and this article object is having get articles verb defined on it, and this get articles verb is talking to the integration service of type database. So now we want to point this get articles verb on this article object to the new integration service that we have created. So we are going to remove this get articles verb that is defined on the article object, and we will create a new custom verb with the same name, get articles, but this new custom verb that we are creating will point to the NDTV integration service that we have created, instead of pointing to the relational DB kind of integration service. So now as we can see here, the get articles verb that we have defined on the articles object is mapped to NDTV integration service get news operation inside that integration service. Let's do the request mapping. I am simply mapping the input that we will receive for the type of the news from the front end application to the input parameters of the integration service that we have defined for the NDTV news. Response mapping is automatically done as we have made sure that the parameters that we have defined for the get news operation are same as the fields that we have for the articles object. Let's test this operation once. I am passing the request payload to get the latest news. Type is the input parameter, and the value for this input parameter I am sending it as NDTV-latest. As we can see here, the object service operation is updated now to talk to the new integration service that we have created, and this is the response that we are getting while we are invoking this object service operation. So let us rename the Fabric app such that it represents the Fabric app for the NDTV news channel implementation, and let us publish this Fabric app. The Fabric app is published successfully. So essentially, inside the Fabric base app, the changes which we have done is to create the integration services talking to the actual APIs exposed by the NDTV news channel, in this case the feeds, and we have updated the object service operation to talk to this new integration service instead of talking to the old relational DB kind of integration service. Now that we have updated the Fabric app to customize it to consume the NDTV news feed, let us look at the customizations that we have to do as part of the front-end application, that is the visualizer project. Here we will be looking at how to create the extensions for the form controllers, presentation controllers, and the business controllers that are part of the base app. First, let us import the base app into this workspace. I am importing the base app into this workspace. I'll click on skip, as we already customized the Fabric app which is ready. We'll point this visualizer app that we are importing to that customized Fabric app. So the base app news got imported successfully. Let us link this visualizer app to the new or the customized Fabric app. I am linking it to the NDTV Fabric app which we have customized just now, and I am renaming the news base app to represent the NDTV news app. The models which are present as part of the base app, I am going to remove those models. I deleted the existing models inside the base app. Refresh the project, and I am going to regenerate the models by pointing to the NDTV Fabric app that we have customized. Click on Generate Object Model. So the new models got generated inside the customized app. If we look at the form controllers implementation, in the base app's form controller, for the input parameters to fetch the different types of news articles, we have the values as the ones that we are showing here. But NDTV news feed is expecting us to send these values as we have seen earlier. For example, for fetching the latest news, we'll have to send the input parameter as NDTV news hyphen latest. If we want to fetch the sports news, we'll have to send the value of the input parameter as NDTV sports hyphen latest. So we'll have to change these types object to reflect the NDTV implementation. Instead of changing directly inside the base form controller, let us look at how to create an extension for the form controller and make the changes inside the extension. To create an extension for the form controller, go to the modules and create a new require.js module under your project and rename the require.js module appropriately. Here I am giving the name of my require.js module as FRM articles controller extension. As I want to create the extension for the FRM articles controller. It need not have to be the same naming convention. Follow a naming convention that is appropriate for your project. So now inside this extension JS module that I am creating, I want to override the type object that we have inside the base form controller, and instead of the type object that is there inside the base form controller, I am overriding it so that it will have values as the NDTV news feed is expecting. So this is how we have overridden the types object from the base form controller as part of the extension that we are creating for this form controller. As of now, this new JS file that we have created is just one more require.js module inside our application. Now, how do we use this new require.js module as an extension to our form controller? To link this, we'll have to go to the reference architecture extensions modules and open the module config. So I am going to the news group under the reference architecture extensions and I am opening the module config. Inside the module config, we will see the details about each form that is present inside this group. In the configuration that we have for each form, we have an option called controller extensions. In this case, for FRM articles, for the FRM articles form controller, I want to use the new require.js module that we have created as the extension for that form controller. So I am giving the name of the require.js module that we have created as a value for this controller extensions parameter under the form articles configuration that I have inside the module config. So this is how we are linking the new require.js module that we have created to be used as an extension to a particular forms controller. So now, without changing any code inside the base form controller, we are able to achieve the customization that we want to perform for the NDTV implementation. Similarly, if we want to create an extension for the presentation controller, so then we would go under the reference architecture extensions. Under the reference architecture extensions, go to the group which we have created representing the forms group, in our case news, and we will find the presentation controllers folder under it. If we right click on the presentation controllers folder, we will have an option to create a new extension for our presentation controllers. So if we create a new extension by choosing this option, it will automatically create one JS file, and the module config would also get automatically updated. If we see here, inside the module config, for the presentation controller config definition, we have a parameter called presentation extensions, and it is automatically updated with the new JS file that got created. Now inside this extensions JS file, if we want to customize the implementation of any function that is present inside the base presentation controller, then we will simply copy that function from the base presentation controller and then define that function to be part of the extension JS file, and inside this we can modify the logic for that function. So this is how, without modifying anything inside the base presentation controller, we can create extensions for the presentation controllers, and inside the extensions we can modify the logic of the existing functionality which is there inside the base presentation controller, or if we want to define new functions, new implementation, we can define the new functions here inside the extensions JS file. I am just putting the log statement for now, because in this case we don't have any requirement to extend the presentation controller or business controller while we are customizing the base news app for NDTV implementation. So just to understand the steps for creating the presentation controller extensions, we just overridden this function and we are updating the log statements inside this function. So while creating the presentation controller extensions, we don't have the requirement to manually update the module config. IDE would do it for us. Now, if we want to create the manager extension, so we'll have to create a new manager group, and then we'll have to override the base implementation of the presentation controller where we are invoking the functions inside the existing manager to invoke the functions of the new manager that we create. So that is how, without touching the existing manager functionality that we have inside the base app, we will be able to extend or customize the implementation of the managers as well. Let's see a simple example of how to do that. I am creating a new manager and I am naming this manager as news manager extension, and I am copying the base implementation that we have inside the business controller of the news manager into the news manager extension. I am just putting few log statements. We are not changing any functionality or implementation inside this code, because for our requirement there is no purpose of creating a new extension for the business controller or presentation controller, right? So to look at what are the steps that we have to take for creating a new business controller extension or a presentation controller extension, we are just creating them and understanding how to create a business controller extension and the presentation controller extension. I'm copying the implementation of the get articles function from the base presentation controller, and I'm defining or overriding its implementation inside the presentation controller extension that we have created. And in this overridden function, I'll be using the news manager extension instead of the base news manager. So this is how, without modifying anything inside the base presentation controller or inside the base business controller or inside the base form controller, we are able to create the extensions for the form controller, presentation controller and business controller, and we are able to override the implementation that is part of the base app for achieving our requirement while implementing the base app to a particular client. Let's build this application. Here is the latest news that we are fetching from the NDTV news feed and showing it on the screen. If we look at the console, we will be able to identify that the overridden implementation that we have in the form controller extension, presentation controller extension and business controller extension are being invoked. So the get articles function, which is overridden inside the presentation controller extension, is getting invoked. Similarly, the overridden function which is there inside the business controller extensions is getting invoked. And if we look at the input parameters, we will be able to understand if we see here, we are able to understand for the type input parameter, the values that are being picked up are from the form controller extension instead of the base form controller. So this is how we are able to simply customize the existing base app and make it talk to a different client. So by using this reference architecture extensions type of project, you will be able to create an app as a product, and at a later point of time, you can customize the functionality inside the app without modifying the base implementation by creating extensions to the various components present inside the base implementation, and you can implement the app for various clients. If we want to customize the UI experience, the themes that we are using, the images that we are using inside the application, then it is recommended that you have to duplicate the default theme that we have inside the application by clicking on this duplicate current theme and rename the duplicated theme to the customization that you are implementing. I am giving the theme name as NDTV theme, and inside this, now all the skins that are present inside the default theme are available inside the new theme that you have created. Now in this new theme, we can change the configurations of those skins and we can make the look and feel appropriate to our implementation. We have customized the configurations of the skins being used inside the application as part of the new theme that we have created. So now if we build this application and look at the result, so this is how the new application looks like with the new skinning that we have created. So using the reference architecture extensions type of project, you can create an app as a product, and at a later point of time, by using the extensions capabilities that we have inside this reference architecture extensions type of project, you will be able to extend the functionality or customize the existing functionality without making any changes to the base implementation, which will allow you to have the upgrade path alive, so that if a new version of the base app is released at a later point of time, your customized app will be able to easily get upgraded to the new version of the base app that gets released, because all your customizations and extensions are maintained separately as part of the extensions components inside this reference architecture extensions type of project. Thank you.